Ready to dive into some market signals? We're doing a deep dive on the October 1st COT report.
COT report, that's the Commitments of Traders report, right?
You got it. We're talking currencies and precious metals today.
Trying to see what's coming next.
Exactly. And we're going beyond the surface level. We're going to analyze the positions of the real insiders.
The commercial traders.
Right, because their actions can tell a different story than the overall market sentiment.
Sometimes it feels like they're playing a whole different game.
Absolutely. They have knowledge and insights that most of us don't. Speaking of different games, the Canadian dollar really stands out this week.
It's true. Almost like a contrarian investor's dream right now.
So what are you seeing?
Well, you've got speculators getting more and more bearish, like they're expecting a huge drop. But then you see the commercial traders, the ones who really know this market, actually increasing their long exposure. That's a big signal.
A bullish signal.
Definitely. It's like they're seeing something the rest of the market is missing.
So what's your take on this? Are the commercials onto something big, or could this backfire?
Well, you got to remember, commercial traders are often businesses that depend on these markets.
Right. They're not just speculating.
Exactly. They might be aware of things like upcoming policy changes, maybe regulatory changes, even whispers of big deals that could impact the Canadian dollar.
Things that haven't even hit the news yet.
Exactly.
Wow, it's like they're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
That's a great way to put it. And this kind of difference in positioning, it's not always about being right or wrong.
What do you mean?
Well, it's about understanding where the surprises might be.
I see. So with the Canadian dollar, it sounds like a potential short squeeze could be brewing if the commercials are right.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on. Now let's look at another interesting currency, the Swiss franc.
All right, the Swiss francs, what's happening there? All right, the Swiss franc, what's happening there?
Well, with the Swiss franc, we're seeing both commercial and non-commercial traders leaning bearish.
Okay.
But how quickly they're moving tells a story.
Interesting.
Non-commercial shorts have surged recently.
So they're betting on it going down?
Yeah, like they think it's going to plummet.
Wow.
But the commercials, they're shorting too, but just not as much.
Okay.
It's more strategic, you know?
So it's less about whether the franc will weaken and more about how much it might weaken.
Yeah, exactly. They're likely factoring in the Swiss National Bank.
Right? They might do something.
They have a history of intervening in currency markets.
Ah, that's right. The infamous central bank wildcard.
Something those speculators might not fully appreciate.
Right. Good point. Okay, so the sentiment is cautiously bearish on the franc.
Yeah, you could say that.
But it sounds like there could be a floor in place.
It's possible.
Now, we can't talk currencies without at least mentioning the British pound.
Always a popular one.
What's the COT report telling us about the pound compared to the US dollar?
It's like a tug of war.
How so?
Well, non-commercials are feeling bullish, increasing their net long position on the GBP USD pair.
So they're betting on the pound to strengthen against the dollar?
Exactly. But at the same time, you've got the commercials holding firm to their bearish stance, even increasing their net short position.
It's like that old saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure, playing out right before our eyes in the currency market.
Haha, that's a good way to put it.
What are some other global currencies flashing buy or sell signals this week?
Well, the Australian dollar is one you have to keep an eye on.
What's happening there?
Big swings.
Like how big?
Huge. Both commercial and non-commercial positioning have made big moves recently.
Which way, though? Up or down?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Both sides have made significant moves in both directions lately.
So nobody knows what's going on?
Not really. No, it suggests a lot of uncertainty around the Australian economy right now. Maybe it's commodity prices, China's economy, or even internal policy changes.
So anyone trading the Aussie dollar better be paying attention.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Sound like a recipe for volatility. Any other currencies in the hold on to your hats category?
Well, the New Zealand dollar is another one sending out mixed signals.
How so?
Speculators are piling in, driving a surge in net long positions. But once again, we see those commercials hedging their bets, even slightly increasing their short exposure.
So similar to the Aussie dollar, there are strong opinions on both sides, but no clear winner yet?
Exactly.
It just goes to show that even with something like currencies where economic fundamentals should be the main driver,
Right.
Sentiment and speculation still play a big role.
They do, and that's why I think the COT report is so valuable. It gives you that extra layer of insight into not just what the market is doing, but who is doing it.
Okay, I've got to ask about the US dollar index before we move on.
Of course, the big kahuna.
Exactly. It's been a wild ride for the US dollar this past year. What are you seeing in the COT report?
Well, it's sending mixed signals, to be honest.
Like what?
Both commercial and non-commercial traders are hovering near neutral positions. Open interest has actually gone down.
So they're waiting to see what happens next.
Yeah, it seems like even the US dollar is taking a breather after the year it's had. Everybody's waiting for the next big thing.
Which will probably be what?
Well, the Fed's next interest rate decision will be big, of course.
Right.
But you never know with the global economy and geopolitics.
Right. Always something.
Always something.
Okay, let's move on to precious metals. I'm interested in silver this week. It feels stuck.
Yeah, it's been in a holding pattern.
What's the COT report saying? Is a breakout coming?
Silver. Yeah, it's definitely one to watch. We're seeing that bullish sentiment fade a bit.
Okay.
Speculators are pulling back on those net long positions.
That makes sense.
But here's the interesting thing. Commercials are easing up on their short positions too.
Huh. So both sides are taking a step back. Does that mean silver is about to jump up or down, or are we stuck for a while?
It's hard to say for sure, but that decrease in open interest makes me think people are waiting to see what happens next.
Waiting for a sign.
Exactly. Could be the next economic data release, or even, something happening around the world could tip the scales.
True enough. Okay, let's talk about gold. It's been on a tear for the past year, but is it running out of steam?
Well, gold's momentum has cooled off a bit.
Yeah, I've been seeing that.
Open interest is down, and speculators aren't as bullish as they were, but the commercials are throwing us a curveball.
Oh, really? How so?
They're cutting back on their short positions.
Interesting. Why would they do that if sentiment is getting less bullish?
That's the question, isn't it? Could be a sign of short covering.
So they're buying it back before the price goes up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't want to be caught on the wrong side of the trade.
So gold is like a game of chicken right now.
It feels that way.
The speculators are blinking, but the commercials might be the ones pushing the price up in the short term.
It's definitely a possibility.
Fascinating stuff. What's your outlook on gold against the US dollar, that XAUSD pair?
Well, the XAUSD is a good reminder that even if you're bullish on gold, you can't forget about currencies.
Right, because a rising tide doesn't lift all boats.
Exactly. The COT data is showing some bearish sentiment there, both from commercials and non-commercials.
So even if gold goes up, a strong US dollar could cancel that out.
Exactly. Especially for anyone who holds gold as a USD-denominated asset.
It all comes back to currencies in the end.
It often does.
Yeah.
And this is why I think the COT report is so useful.
Yeah.
It gives you that extra layer of information so you can see the bigger picture.
It's like having a secret weapon.
In a way,
Yeah.
I guess.
Right.
But remember, it's just one tool.
Right.
Combine it with other analysis, look at the economic news and what's happening in the world, and don't be afraid to change your strategy if you need to.
Great advice. This has been a really interesting discussion. You've given us a lot to think about.
Glad to hear it. Always happy to talk about these markets.
Me too. And thank you to everyone listening for joining us on this deep dive into currencies and precious metals. We'll see you next time.